Who are you? I came across the story of a man recently that blew my mind. It made me think and rethink my goals, my assumption, even my convictions. And I had to really look at my convictions. How strong do I feel about them? The grandson of a slave, Vivien Thomas, was born in 1910. He wanted to be a doctor, but he lost all his life savings during the Great Depression. And at a time when he should have been first semester in university, he became a lab assistant for a Dr. Alfred Balloch at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Balloch trained him in anatomy, physiology, research methodology, surgical techniques, and Vivien Thomas was not just a quick study. It was absolutely amazing with the human body. He had a connection with the human body. He saw things that the doctors couldn't see, and he also became an inventor. In 1941, Dr. Balloch was invited to come to Johns Hopkins University, which was his alma mater, and he requested Vivien to come with him, which he did. Now, here's where it gets interesting. At Johns Hopkins at that time, there were no black students, there were no black doctors. Blacks were not allowed into school, and so he was not allowed the privileges that the white doctors or lab technicians had. He was not just not seen as a medical or paramedical person. He was actually, in their books, put down as a janitor, and he was paid as a janitor. So this is someone who should have been a first class medical student, but was being paid as a janitor. It was so bad that at one point, there's a movie about this as well. One older white doctor gave him money, put money on the table and said, "I want coffee and donut." And calmly, I don't know how he did it, because I don't think I would have been able to do it. He picked up the money and gave it back to the guy and said, "There's been a mistake." Anyway, so he stayed there as janitor. In 1944, he was part of a particular surgical procedure that was complex in itself, but was also life-saving. If it succeeded, it would be absolutely amazing. He was part of a group. So it was him, Dr. Balloch, and another doctor, Dr. Ellen Toussaint. I'm not going to say that name again because I think I'm not saying correctly. And they came up with this procedure that worked perfectly well. And Johns Hopkins got the prestige, they got the fame, and it was recorded in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and nothing was said of Vivien. For you to know just what an important role he played in this, when the surgical operation was going to happen, a stool was brought into the theater with big fuss going on, but the stool was brought into the theater. Vivien stood behind Dr. Balloch when he was operating and walked him through the procedure. And yet, nothing was written about him. His name was not mentioned either by Dr. Balloch or Dr. Ellen. Nobody said anything about him. This guy was like Mordecai, who saved the king and everybody forgot all about him. And I thought, what could possibly go wrong? Or what could possibly be going on in his mind? How could he have survived this? How did he endure it? But he was focused. He knew what he wanted. Somebody asked me, why do you think he stayed there? Why didn't he just leave if they were treating him like this and they were paying him such peanuts? And I thought he probably looked at it, and this is my thinking, I didn't read it anyway. He probably looked at it and he felt, I'm not a doctor. I don't have that certificate. I've not been to medical school. I know all those things. I'm able to do all those things. They've given me access to a laboratory here at Johns Hopkins, even though they don't see me more than that. And this is what I want to do. He didn't let his focus shift. I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I don't know if I would have been able to do it. the procedure that was done that day became the BT shunt. It was something to help with kids turning blue, where it was a hard congenital thing, and kids will turn blue, or babies will turn blue, or something like that. And they are just the names of the other two doctors. His name was never there, and it stayed here at this hospital for over 30 years. It was there for years. It was there for 30 years. It actually stayed 19 years after Dr. Blalock died. It was still there. And then in 1976, it was finally given a doctorate. Not a doctorate of medicine because of some law. So it was given a doctorate in law. It was finally recognized. And even today, his portrait is there in Johns Hopkins. But I thought, this is like Abraham. Even Abraham didn't have to wait 33 years, but he had to wait 33 years to get that doctorate. This was a man who became an instructor, and in fact, in the end, he became a director of surgical research laboratories in Johns Hopkins. He mentored people, he instructed people, he became an instructor. He even operated, because one of the doctors that worked with him said it was flawless. It was flawless from the beginning to the end when he was operating. There was no wasted effort, no wasted movement. In fact, before the first operation that he did, where he had to put stitches, the same Dr. Blalock said it was as if it was like something made by God. And that's actually the name of the movie. You're looking for it. It says, "This looks like something the Lord made." So the recognition for what he was doing was there, but there was no monetary value. The recognition was only amongst his peers, and they were his peers, even if he wasn't even higher than them. And maybe there is someone in your office that is now a teen god in your mind, or they've made themselves a teen god, or there's a situation that you think, there's no way, this is insurmountable. There is a way. You need to just focus on what is going on, or rather not focus on what is going on, and focus on where you are going, on what you want. There have been situations with me this year that my pastor, oh God bless that man, he said to me, "So what is your goal?" Because I was about to make drastic emotional decisions that I knew I would regret after, but I was so fed up. So I know that feeling. And it's been a long year in one way or the other. But when he said that, it helped me to rethink what my goal was. It helped me to refocus. It helped me to recenter myself and to say, okay, this is the goal. I think of how Christ also, okay, obviously I'm not Christ. I think of those 9 lepers. There were 10 of them that he healed. And 9 of them just went off nilly-willy on their way. And he could have just said, really? Okay, so there were so many instances he could have said, really? These people, Lord, Father, I'm done. I'm done with this one. But he didn't. He knew what his purpose was. He knew what his focus was. And he stayed with that. And thank God he stayed with that, because we would not be where we are today. Well, I would not be where I am today. And I just want to say, keep your focus. Keep your focus. This guy eventually became Dr. Vivien, but things were so bad at one time. This same person that was probably in today's world, it would be the chief research, somebody in the lab, was being paid as a janitor. He had a wife and children, and he would in the evening go and work as a bartender for the same people that he was tutoring in the morning, or that he was working alongside in the lab. He would now go and work at their parties just so he could earn more money to look after himself and his family. And yet he stayed. He knew what his purpose was. There is no, or rather, he knew what his focus was. There is nothing that I've read that said he was a Christian. So we have that upper hand to not just know what our goal is, but to know who we are, whose we are. Who do you belong to? Who are you? It's not just a question of knowing what your goal is. It's not just a question of refocusing, but to know that you're not in it alone. To know that the person that is with you already knows the end. If anybody had told me that I would be where I am today, at the beginning, 3 days into this year, it was a totally different story. It was a totally different story. And yet, here I am, and I hope I am encouraging somebody. The year is not over, and in 3 weeks, we're going to be in the new year. We're just going to sleep and wake up, and it's the new year. You know that, I know that. Just remain focused. Just remain focused on what you want, on where you're going, on whose you are. Just remember whose you are, who you belong to. And it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And like Mordecai, somebody did remember, or at least found out about Dr. Vivien Thomas just last year in 2022. A nurse was attending a lecture, heard about this person and his involvement and his isolation or exclusion from the accreditation that came with the BT shunt. And she made an effort, and now they changed it. They changed the name. They gave him, finally, I mean, he's been dead since 1975, but finally he got the recognition. And they actually officially changed the name of the shunt from BT to BTT, the other T being his own Thomas. So I know that you're not forgotten. I am not forgotten. God does not leave room for errors. He doesn't have errors in his planning, and he already knows the end from the beginning. So he's already got the plan. Right now, it might be so dark you cannot even see beyond what it is. And you might say, oh, Temi, you have no idea. And you're right, because my kind of dark is different from your kind of dark. But the thing is, I do know whose I am. I know who I belong to. And I know he's not going to leave me stranded. That is the thing. I know he's not going to leave me stranded. And you've just got to believe that as well. You've just got to hold on to that. And you've just got to stay focused on him. Know that this is who he is. This is who you are. He doesn't change. So it's on you now to not change and to remember the child of who you are.